On today's episode of What's Going On with Shipping, do you remember that time 2 years ago where the Suez Canal was blocked by a ship? Well, it happened again. Not only did it happen again, but that ship was hit by another ship and the entire Suez Canal was temporarily blocked. But fortunately, it's open. But we do have a case of bumper boats on the Suez Canal. I am your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to today's video. So, deja vu, we're back at it again, except this time there was no involvement by Evergreen. Evergreen missed out on a blockage of the Suez Canal. Kudos to you, Evergreen. Great job. However, we do have other ships that are involved. This involved a ship very near, can I be clear? It's really close to where Ever Given got stuck last time. Not only did it go sideways in the canal, but got hit by another vessel involving a third vessel, and a lot of reporting on this, but not exactly clear what happened. And we're going to break that down for you with what we know so far. If you're new to the channel, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. All right, back to what's going on in the Suez. Here's the report from Mike Schuller over at G-Captain. An LNG carrier lost control and turned sideways. Yes, it turned sideways. Fortunately, I will say that this LNG carrier is about 100 meters shorter than Ever Given. So you're talking about 300 feet less, which is really key in this, causing another tanker to run into it. A third tanker was also in the vicinity, but it was unclear if it was involved in any way. It was, as we'll show you. The ships involved are the Burri, a Cayman Island tanker, also the Singapore-flagged LNG carrier BW Lesmes, and the third tanker is a Bahamas-registered Athens Spirit. And it is the BW Lesmes, this is the LNG carrier, is the one that went sideways and really created the entire incident, which we're going to break down for you. Pulled some images from the Suez Canal Authority's Facebook page, and these are BW Lesmes at the anchorage in Suez. This is at the very end of the Suez Canal. So the ship's out of the Suez Canal, was towed out, and is sitting there right now off of Suez. You'll notice scraping down her port side. This is the side that's going to get hit. Not exactly sure if this is caused before the incident, after the incident. We just don't know. But this is her sitting at the anchorage right now. Burri was towed out of the Suez also. You'll see this is a product tanker, light right now, being pulled out of the Suez. She is also at the anchorage south of the canal off of Suez. This ship will be involved in the collision with the Lesmes, but we're not exactly sure what scale involvement there was. The third vessel, the Athenian Spirit, we don't have an image of her. Just a little background information from MarineTraffic on Lesmes, LNG tanker, flagged in Singapore, 115,000 gross tons, 295 meters in length, fairly new vessel, just 2 years old, capable of carrying 170,000 cubic meters of LNG. We're not exactly sure if she was in a loaded condition or not. This is Burri. This is the other vessel that was involved in the incident. This ship is Cayman Island registered, 250 meters in length. Again, another fairly new vessel, just 5 years old. We know she was in a light condition based on the characteristics. And then the third vessel is the Bahamian registered vessel, the Athens Spirit, a crude oil tanker, 274 meters in length. She is also a fairly newer vessel, but not as new, 11 years old, sailing under the Bahamas, 158,000 deadweight. So this is MarineTraffic, and this is going to be their replay. It starts at 22 August at 0 hours UTC. Egypt is 3 hours ahead of this, so it's 3 a.m. in Egypt. And what you're seeing right here is the northbound convoy clearing the north end of the Suez Canal. So the last of the vessels will be coming out of the Suez Canal. There's two convoys that go through the Suez Canal, a northbound and a southbound convoy. Off port said, you gather the fleet for the southbound convoy, and what you're seeing here is the beginning of the southbound convoy. You'll see ships peeling out here, heading into the southbound convoy, into one of the two entrances of the canal. There's two lanes here to get in the beginning of the canal. It then turns into a single lane, but you see the vessels progressing in. The three tankers that we see are in the latter half of this convoy. So this first increment of the canal, of the tankers are going to go, or ships are going to go in, and then there's a momentary kind of lull here while pilots get on board their vessels. They'll start upping anchor and they start heading in. So this is around 0800 UTC, so this is about 11 in the morning. And you'll see the container ships heading in. These are the green vessels heading in. And then you'll start seeing the tankers. And here you can see BW Lesmes coming in. Here's the Burri, and here's the Athens Spirit. And we're going to track them as they head in down the canal. Now, BW Lesmes is the vessel in question. Speed is coming up at this point, about 10 knots. You'll see fluctuating in speed between 8 and 11 knots. As they proceed southward in the canal, you come to the split, the two lanes of the Suez Canal, and they'll get in the right side lane here. And they get into the right side lane because here you'll see the northbound convoy coming in. Back in the day, I'm going to pause this for just a second. Back in the day, there used to be just one lane of the canal. And what would happen is the southbound lane of the canal would get down here into the Great Bitter Lake, have to anchor, and wait for the northbound convoy to pass. Well, since they put in the double lanes, this allows the northbound convoy to literally pass the southbound convoy. Some of the southbound vessels will have to stop and anchor temporarily, but they can basically proceed. And you see them passing each other here in the Great Bitter Lake, and then they head here into the southbound lane. And this is the single lane of the canal here. And here you see those vessels. There's BW Lesmes making that turn out of the Great Bitter Lake and heading southbound now into the canal. And as I mentioned to you before, this is the area where Ever Given got into trouble. So I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit, and I'm actually going to slow this down a bit so that we can get a better view of what is happening here. So Ever Given was actually down here. This is actually where Ever Given happened. This is going to happen just a little bit, maybe about a mile north of it. So here you see the vessels heading in. You'll see intermixed in here, very key thing to note that's different than we saw with Ever Given. These little light blue, these are tugs spaced in here. So one of the things that the Suez Canal has done is really included more tugs with the passage of vessels. This is so they can catch events like what you're going to see transpire here. So we're going to watch this happen. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more here. Here's BW Lesmes, 11.1 knots now, heading southbound. Again, if you want to see what happened with Ever Given, be sure to check out the video that's linked up above here. We break down that based on the report that was issued by the Panama Canal Authority. So here's BW Lesmes heading down 11.1 knots. We're going to go ahead and throw track lines in here too as they come down here. And you're starting to see it. Now, one of the things to look here is you got to be careful on AIS for a couple of reasons. You see the outline of the vessel, you see the direction it's heading, and it looks like it's going sideways. That's not exactly always accurate because sometimes ships have to turn a little bit because of wind. And so you get the actual which way the ship is pointing versus which way it's actually going. The arrow is showing you which way the vessel is going. And what you'll see here is where Lesmes loses it. And you see that speed drop right off. Now, according to reports, I pulled off the report from the Suez Canal Authority. And I want to read this section to you that basically delineates what they said. The SEA chairman, this is Admiral Osama Rabi. He is the head of the Suez Canal Authority, and he was the head 2 years ago when Ever Given hit. Clarified that a slight contact has occurred between the LNG carrier BW Lesmes and the tanker Burri that follows. As BW Lesmes had made a sudden stop in the water at kilometer marker 144, the canal has these mile markers, kilometer markers, on it due to a technical failure in steering and machinery which led to the loss of steering. Such failures coincided with a strong water current that led the tanker Burri to make a slight contact with the broken down LNG carrier. So right here we see the BW Lesmes. Let me go back and replay it one more time. So here is the vessels coming in. Again, you see the Schweitzer Suez 1. This is one of those tugboats. Here comes BW Lesmes, 11.2 knots, and all of a sudden you see it starts losing control, speed comes down, and then all of a sudden it stops. It's a sudden stoppage, which means the ship ran aground. So let's go ahead and play this again for you. Here you'll see a vessel in front of the Lesmes heading down. Here is the BW Lesmes coming down. I'm going to slow it down to its max. And one of the things you'll notice here is if you notice the speed's at 11.2 knots. That seems in track with everybody else. The Schweitzer Suez 1, a tugboat, is just in front of it heading down at that speed. what you'll notice is the speed begins to drop off just a little bit before it loses its helm control. We know the ship had either a steering or propulsion failure. They are saying it's not human error, it's mechanical error. And once they lose propulsion and steering, you'll see the vessel kind of careen out of the way here. See it start losing way, it slows down, and then its bow will go into the eastern bank. That is the best bank to go into because that is where all the silt is piled up. It's exactly where you want to do, but it will also be pulled that way because of the prop and the rudder, depending on which way the rudder was. We don't know if it was a rudder failure or propulsion failure. Did the ship drop the plant? And by dropping the plant, I mean lose power. I've been on a ship that lost power. The spookiest sound on a ship is quiet, and when a ship goes quiet, it's really bad. Did the ship lose rudder control or did it lose propulsion? No matter what, it caused it to careen to the left, to the port side. It ran its bow into the bank and began to kick around. But remember what I told you, what's different about this vessel than Ever Given is it's 100 meters shorter. And what you're going to see is the vessel is going to start to swing because of the current pushing down southward in the canal. It's going to begin to pivot. But coming in behind it is the Burri, and you already see the Burri starting to slow. The minute a vessel gets in trouble on the Suez, it'll get on the VHF radio, tell the other vessels, and what you want to begin to do is slow down. You don't want to crash back astern because you lose your ability to steer. What they want to do with Burri is slow down, stay in the middle of the canal, and avoid running into this. But as you'll see, that's not exactly what happens. So here comes Burri in. She's slowing down about 4.4 knots down to 1.1 knot, is doing a really great job of slowing down at this point. So Burri seems to be doing exactly what you wanted to do, staying in the middle of the canal, slowing down. It's not pendulating. It's not kind of, careening around. In the meantime, Schweitzer Suez, number one, looks like they're on the port quarter of the vessel, trying to pull it off the bank. One of the big things is if it goes in, you want to get it out as quick as you can before it gets a chance to get sucked in there and stay there. Let's go ahead and see it play out here. And one of the things you'll see is here comes Athens Spirit now right behind them. And Athens Spirit has got a little bit of speed up on them. We see the BM Lesmes kind of pivoting a little bit. Now the bow is actually facing northward. The ship has spun around 180, actually more than that. And you see it pivoting around. The Schweitzer Suez is on the port side. Burri slowing down. Athens Spirit is coming down. A tug is going to try to slow down Athens Spirit as it comes in. Burri is sitting there. Here's the second tug. The Schweitzer Suez 2 is now in location, trying to get tows onto the Lesmes. Both ships are kind of holding there. And now what you see, and I want to talk about this for a minute, it looks like Schweitzer Suez 1 has a tow line on at this point. We see the ship heading down 4.5 knots, Lesmes 1.2 knots. Looks like they may have gotten a tow on it. It's hard to tell, obviously, with AIS. I am just using my supposition here. Athens Spirit has a tug on its port quarter. Burri is holding its position here in between the two tankers, and it looks like they may have a handle on this. But what's interesting to note here is that they're pulling them south. They have the tow at this point. But again, Athens Spirit is coming down. For some reason, I don't know, Schweitzer Suez 2 had gone further south. Now it's coming back up. Burri looks like it's heading for the bank on the west side. At this moment, Athens Spirit looks like it's scraping up against the east side. And Lesmes seems to be kind of careening a little bit out of control at this point. And once again, Lesmes is going to hit the bank. And this is where Lesmes does something very strange. It looks, again, it's hard to tell with AIS, so I can't be 100% sure. The bow goes into the east bank. And what we're going to see, it's going to pull the stern in. And this is where you're going to get the blockage now of the Suez. Everybody is still kind of drifting south at this point with the current in the Suez. But now Lesmes is going to go across the entire canal here. They're trying to get a handle on her. We see other vessels coming in. Here's Navios Phoenix. Look how close Burri and Athens Spirit is at this point. And now we see Lesmes has gone completely across the canal. She is blocking the canal at this point. Her stern, which is her prop and rudder, is in the mud. At this point, if you go further up, her bow had been in, but now the stern is in, which is worse. And now she's completely across the canal. Burri, Athens, Spirit, and Navios Americus, which is above her here. As you see, Navios Phoenix is all coming down on this position. And this is where it gets really wonky. At no point is there a tug on Burri. All the tugs are being used at this time to keep Athens Spirit here. They're getting close alongside each other. Burri is up against the west bank. Athens Spirit is up against the east bank. You see Burri kind of backing down at this point. But again, notice how close they are. Here is a tug coming in between them, trying to avoid contact between the two. That puts Burri into the center of the channel, and now the current just catches her. And it's going to bring her down on top of BW Bemis here. BW Lesmes, and that's where you get the hit here, and that's where that contact comes in. It goes on here. I'll read from the report from the SCA. Admiral Rabi confirmed that SCA tugboats, Suez Canal Authority tugboats, have succeeded in handling the navigation emergency situation by towing and mooring the tanker Burri while connecting tow lines of 4 other tugboats to the broken down Lesmes and commencing its towing operation by the salvage boat Izat Adel of bollard pull of 160 tons. I apologize for this. This is Google Translate doing there, so it's probably not in the perfect syntax. Besides the tugboats, Mosheb 2, Suez 1, and Suez 2. And you can see there are 3 of the tugboats there. There's Mosheb 2. They added that in the same regard that towing works of the LNG carrier LNG BMW Lesmes out of the navigational waterway have been completed. So here, this is the collision that they were talking about. So Athens Spirit is up here, up against the bank. You have the Burri up against BW Lesmes. Lesmes is kind of jammed in here at this moment. And then you see the salvage tugs coming in, more of the tugs. Here comes the Izet Adel backing down. Here's Mosheb 2 coming in. They're going to try to get tow lines on it and pull the vessel out from the position it's in, with its bow up against the western side of the Suez and its stern on the eastern side. But you got to be careful. They don't want to pull it until Burri is secured, because what they don't want to do is pull Lesmes clear and then Burri comes back down on them. So you got to anchor the northern vessel here as you begin the pull on the southern vessel, and at the same time you don't want Athens Spirit getting loose and having a 3-way pile up. So you see all the tugboats coming in, and this is a big difference that we saw again with Ever Given from 2 years ago. We're seeing this done. So you see Burri actually being pulled off by the salvage tugs initially. So they're removing that vessel. They'll put it up against the western bank here, get her out of the way. And then you see tugs and salvage vessels preparing to move BW Lesmes out of the way. So very smart salvage operation being done here by the Suez Canal Authority. Clear the middle vessel, which is the Burri. Burri is up against the bank at this point. They'll secure the vessel, make sure it's not going to cause any problems, and then they will free the BW Lesmes. So you'll see that movement here. Here's that pull being done. You see the tugs actually pushed on her to get her bow into the northbound, kind of, facing northbound, out of the way. And then the Izet Adel, which is a larger salvage tug, came in, pulled the stern, and now you see the vessel being moved out. They're going to secure her temporarily. Notice that they didn't let her go back down. They pushed her up against the bank temporarily so that they can get a good amount of tow on her. What they want to do is get a tow line on her to tow her down, while at the same time prevent the vessel from kind of pendulating in movement. So you want to get vessels on the hip, so to speak, kind of sideways on her, and pull her down as the tow begins. And you see the vessels moved out at this time. Here is the vessels came out into the canal and they were clear. So a very interesting operation that was done by the Suez Canal Authority to clear what could have been a repeat of Ever Given. Fortunately, again, what prevented that from happening, this vessel, the Lesmes, is 100 meters shorter. Salvage efforts were immediately on scene to catch the other vessels. We still had a collision between two vessels, so that's going to have to be an investigation. You're going to have to get divers down to ensure there's no damage on the vessels. But Suez Canal is open for business. They are moving traffic, a definite save for the Suez Canal. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, and if you can, support the page. How do you do that? You hit the super thanks button down below or head on over to Patreon and become a monthly or yearly subscriber. Until our next episode, this is Sal signing off.